Okay, this is a nice crowd. I'm glad we have a lot of people turning up for what is really going to be a very important and I think very interesting event. My name is Ari Antonovsky. I was president last year, so immediate past president. And on behalf of the Board of Management of Temple David and our president, Rick Volosny, Rick is out there, and his wife Jillian, I'd like to welcome you to this event this afternoon. I'd like to thank all of you for turning up on a very fine Sunday afternoon here. So it shows the interest, the level of interest that we have in this particular topic. I'd especially like to extend a warm welcome to a few people. David Korotkin, who's the president of UIA, and his wife Jessica. Jeff Medallia was going to come. I don't see him, but anyway, the president of the Jewish Community Council. Jonathan Silbert, who I've met earlier, chair of UIA-WA and president of the Perth Chevra Kadisha. Robin Lieblich and Estelle Lynn, co-chairs of WIZO-WA. Steve Lieblich, vice president of the Jewish Community Council. Saul Metellus, president of the Holocaust Institute. Trevor Krull, or Trevor, president of the Council of Christians and Jews for WA. And Mary Marshall, the Honorary Secretary of the Council of Christians and Jews, WA. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the land in which the synagogue is built, the Noongar people of the Whadjuk Nation, and pay respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge Am Yisrael, the First Nation and traditional owners of Eretz Yisrael, and pay respects to our tzaddikim, past, present, and emerging, one of whom we have here today. But first, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Lynda Ben Menashe. Lynda describes herself as a feminist, a Zionist, an optimist, and a realist, all labels that I can relate to. I'm just wondering whether optimist and realist are mutually exclusive, but we can get into that discussion later. Anyway, Lynda has served the Australian Jewish community for the past 15 years, and probably longer, I would guess, through organizations including World WIZO, the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, the National Council of Jewish Women, and the New South Wales Board of Deputies, where she was head of engagement, nurturing relationships between the Jewish and the wider communities. She's created a number of programs there. Programs include Talking About Israel, which is a program that's upskilled about 3,000 people during the days of peace and war. A program called We Are All Sydney, a leadership program for people from over 90 ethnic communities. And the Shared Table Project for Jewish and Muslim women, which won Rotary's New South Wales Community Peace Prize. Other events she organizes include the annual Women of Diversity Dinner, an annual commemoration of the departure and expulsion of Jews from Arab countries and Iran, and study tours of Israel and the West Bank for church leaders and other community group leaders. She now works as a strategic consultant to a wide range of multicultural communities, and I think we're very privileged to have you here this afternoon. So please welcome Lynda.
Thank you so much, and thanks everybody for coming out on a hot Sunday afternoon. What I was asked to talk to you about today was kind of the state of the nation from a Jewish perspective. Now, you know, in this audience of Jews, I would say that there would be 74 versions of the state of the nation from a Jewish perspective. So I'm going to kind of give you mine, and I'll speak for about 10 minutes, and then somebody will tell me that it's time for you to engage, and we'll have a bit of a conversation. So I don't know whether to start with the different sectors in Australian society, or whether to start with the way our community is organised. I think I might start with sort of the wider community. And, you know, as my introduction outlined, my role for about the last 12 or so years has been engaging with everything outside our community. In the Jewish Board of Deputies in New South Wales, we used to have a division of labour between those who did Jews and those who didn't do Jews. I didn't much do Jews. I engaged with everything outside in other ethnic communities, faith communities, civil society generally, and I supported those who engaged with people in media and people in politics. Now, I think probably the most obvious thing from, my decade working in that role and from the experience of every other Jewish community professional in the world is that we have failed miserably in everything that we did. We, in every country around the world, we're sort of charged with fighting anti-Semitism. And we have lost whatever fight that was to a profound degree. And I think, for me personally, have had to pull back to actually remember what I was told by the President of the Board of Deputies when I started in the role, which was, your job is not to defeat anti-Semitism. 2,500 years later, we haven't done it, we're never going to do it. But your job actually is to make sure that the public expression of anti-Semitism remains socially unacceptable. Now, the public expression of anti-Semitism is now highly acceptable in many, if not most, sectors of our country. And so for all the millions of dollars and the billions of hours that we have all put into the work, building relationships, we have very little to call success. It doesn't really sound like I'm an optimist, does it? But on an optimistic note, I will say that I think it's important for us to remember that the silent majority right now is indeed still the majority. Those friends and those people in politics and those people, in your workplace who have expressed support for you and for us and for some sort of nuanced conversation or balance in the approach to these tumultuous world affairs, they are indeed the silent majority, and there is a time coming where that silence will need to be broken, and it is all of our responsibilities to engage more deeply with those people to make sure that they are indeed prepared to and courageous enough to stand up, because we have to be strong enough and courageous enough, chazak ve'ematz, enough to stand up ourselves. I think we're blessed to live in this country, which really for Jews has been a paradise. This is the place we ran to. Some of us, it was our great-great-great-grandparents in the middle of the 19th century, and some of us, it was us. Leaving the former Soviet Union or leaving South Africa or leaving Argentina or wherever, and this is not a place we want to run from. That said, there are certain sectors in society where we are feeling the heat. Those sectors in particular, as you would be aware, include the creative circles, academia in particular. Some would say the media, and I think we need to be careful not to label the media as one animal. There is great nuance, I think, across our Australian media, and you know how Jews are, we're paranoid. The Jewish condition they call paranoia confirmed by history, and we kind of look to the bad places and either ignore the good places or focus really on what's not being said without listening for what is. In politics, I think it's mixed because there are indeed some very morally centred politicians across the board who are speaking up, speaking out. And I don't mean taking sides, because this is not a football game. This is not a football game, and it's up to us to remember that ourselves and to remind others as well. You don't need to take sides here. We talk about a right side of history and a wrong side of history, and many of the people whom Jewish people would label as, against us, they're people who are good people, who want to stand on the right side of history. And I think it's important for us to remember as well what it means to be a Jewish person driven by Jewish values, which say that every human life is an entire world. And it is our Jewish responsibility to express our Jewish empathy for all of the innocents who are victims of this conflict. It's not a football game for us either. Right now, it feels like, and it is, a kill or be killed situation, which is horrific. And it is important that we remember that it is horrific, and that my nephews did not want to put on uniforms and go into Gaza. They do not want innocent women and children and men to die. But equally, they do not want more of their brothers and sisters and grandmothers to be raped and murdered. So we need to be strong in our moral clarity about what is actually going on here. So I'll just turn, and of course I'm being very, very superficial in all of this, but I'll just turn quickly to how the Jewish community is kind of organised or not organised, and who's doing what right now. So, the central lie of the Jewish conspiracy theory is that Jews are malevolent, Jews are evil, and that Jews are manipulating any system for our evil intent. All right? So all the work I did with the Jewish and Muslim women's circles, and all the work we did in helping to uplift emerging communities, whether they be African or Chinese, when we helped our Asian friends when, COVID came and they were called the bringers of the plague, all of that work that we did, that, according to Jenny Leong, was our Jewish tentacles going in there because we had an ulterior motive. Well, let me tell you, it was not. But the point I'm trying to make is that we are a network, we are not a conspiracy. And there is not a hugely organised Jewish attempt to counter the propaganda and win friends and influence people. If there was, and certainly if there was a successful one, we would be doing a lot better than we are right now. So this is what is done at each sort of level. So at the national level, the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, which is a national elected representative roof body, meaning it has elected constituents. So in Western Australia, in New South Wales, in Queensland, every state has an elected representative body to which any Jewish person over 18 can become a member, can stand for office, etc. Those are all the constituents of the ECAJ. Now, there are also unelected roof bodies. They are not representative. So, for example, on the extreme, this is your right, on the extreme right, we have the Australian Jewish Association. It sounds very official, has no transparency whatsoever about its membership, has a big online presence, and if you actually have a look at who's engaging with them online, you'll find that probably 90% or more of those people with the Australian Jewish Association are conservative Christians. On the extreme left is a brand new organisation calling itself the Australian Jewish Council. Again, doesn't have a membership. It's got 3.5 representatives, self-appointed, who represent an anti-Zionist perspective, which, if we look at our current polling, I mean, at a normal time, not a wartime, you'd get 70 to 80% of Australian Jews identifying themselves as Zionists. At wartime, we're looking at over 90% at least. So they are representing maybe 10%, if not less, of the Jewish community. But again, they've got a very official sounding name, but not an official or elected representative roof body. So at the state levels, the elected bodies work in concert with the ECAJ. They work on strategy, or they don't work on strategy. You know how Jewish organisations work, and this one wants to take credit for something, and so they won't work with that one. And, you know, for a Jewish conspiracy, for any kind of conspiracy, we are not particularly effective. But what the ECAJ does with a mandate is engage with politicians and media on international issues. So that means when the media comes to the Jewish community and asks for a comment about UNRWA funding, the ECAJ makes a comment. Okay? So I'm in this little WhatsApp group for the New South Wales Jewish Board of Deputies, the state body. Yesterday, or no, not yesterday, the day before, we had a conversation. We've been asked for a comment. Do we make a comment? No, we don't make a comment. That's not our territory. It's international federal government territory. They make the comment. What the state bodies do is they engage with media and everything in their state that moves on Jewish community issues. Now, sometimes they will talk about Israel-Palestine. They try not to as much as possible. They try to leave that stuff to the national bodies. But obviously in this day and age when Israel and Jews, I mean, we're talking about Israel here. So what is the business of Jewish people today? Well, it's certainly what's going on now. So this week on Thursday night, we had the New South Wales Premier's annual Multicultural Harmony Dinner. Interestingly, as in, seems to me, most such events these days, the Muslim community absented itself in vast numbers from those events. But there we were, and we had a discussion about what we were going to wear, because you were supposed to go in either black tie or cultural dress. So I did consider ironing my octopus outfit, but I decided in the end that I would wear a yellow ribbon for the hostages. I was totally opposed to the idea of wearing the Australia-Israel flags together, because we're not talking about Israel issues here. The Jewish community of New South Wales, what's it focused on? Our people. That's our hostages. So that hopefully gives you sort of a symbolic representation. What are we about? So that's the sort of elected roof bodies. When it comes to all the other sort of Jewish organisations, that's WITSO, that's UIA, that's JNF, that's synagogues, that's everybody has their constituency. Some of them are fundraisers, some of them are social support groups. You know, everybody does their thing. Sometimes they engage with the roof body, sometimes they don't. Generally they engage when they need something, or when something's happened to them and they want to know, like, what do we do? What do we say? Can you support us? And under them, or next to them, is the grassroots network. So, you know, 1 Jew, 3 Jews, 4 opinions, whatever it is, there's plenty of those. And I don't know how many WhatsApp groups you're in, but I had to cull about 20 the other day because I just can't keep up. And so every little group, subgroup, everybody's doing their thing. And when it comes to some statement that Clementine Ford made or something that happened on a campus, like everybody's got an idea of what they want to do, right? Not so great, because everybody's working either at cross purposes or duplicating or... And what I've tried to be, and what I've tried to encourage others to be, actually is a piece of Lego. You know what my job is? It's to connect. And I really do think there is a time for coordination, and that's now. And I'm going to give you an example of when it worked really, really well. And this is the way it should actually be working. Because nobody can, and certainly Jews can't tell each other what to do. Like, nobody can say, you can't say this or you should say that or whatever it is, but we should actually all be learning from each other's mistakes. And we're making plenty of mistakes. We're making plenty of mistakes. And my mantra is, always make new mistakes. Okay? So we should be learning from each other's mistakes, and we also should be learning from things that work well. So I'm going to give you an example of something that worked well, and then I'm going to end there, and if I've got time, you haven't been looking at your watch, so now somebody should be. So then we'll have a tiny little bit of Q&A time, because I know you're actually here to listen to Rabbi Yael. So early on in this war, the Australian Institute of Architects was asked by a lobby group of architects to make a statement about the war. Now, I'm sure you're aware, lots of groups have made lots of statements about the war, and most of them are utterly, utterly horrific. They are in the football game sort of scheme of things. The one that the Australian Institute of Architects was asked to make did not mention hostages, did not mention Hamas, called Israel, a genocidal baby-killing machine, the usual thing. And the first thing that happened when this all came out, because everything is out publicly in social media now, every Jew and their dog got hysterical. Oh my God, the AIA's made a statement and look what they said and da-da-da-da, and everybody's getting very, very worked up. Well, no, the AIA hadn't made the statement, they'd been asked to make the statement. So this is what happened. And it happened kind of organically, but there were some points of coordination, and I was a piece of Lego in this particular circumstance. So the first thing that happened was that the roof bodies did their job. ECAJ wrote to the national president of the AIA. The state bodies, Board of Deputies, JCCVs, they wrote to state presidents of the AIA saying, what did they say? They didn't say, your statement's wrong, here's a statement you should make. They didn't even say we want a balanced statement. They said we want no statement. What have architects got to do with Israel-Palestine, and what will making any statement do other than break social cohesion here where we live? Okay, number one prize is to maintain social cohesion here where we live, in whatever sector, whatever environment, AIA or the Teachers Federation, let's pray for that, or your workplace, okay? So roof bodies did their thing. Then grassroots got together. So Jewish architects and their friends and their allies and the silent majority wasn't silent. There was a petition put together. Within 2 days, that petition had 1,200 signatures, and it all was no statement, please. Not AIA business. The third thing that happened was, and so the grassroots people, a lot of people called me, what should we put in the petition, blah, 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 no statement. Then there were a few individuals, and again, this is a great model for any such situation. So there's a guy called Ed Littman in New South Wales. He called me, I know his mum. His mum is a survivor from Baghdad of the Farhud, 1941, where, they massacred people. They slit open pregnant women's bellies. They sliced off people's arms and legs and just burned them. And it's a bit triggering, right, when you have a look at the October 7 pics. So Ed called me, and that was the, Jews from Arab lands and whatever. That's why I knew his mum, because we'd had her featured in one of our events on Baghdad. Anyway, he called me and he said, look, I'm a life member. I know the president of the AIA really well. What should be in my letter? So I said, what should be in your letter is no statement. Let's focus on social cohesion. Let's focus on architect business. And let me tell you how it makes me personally feel when my mum looked at those pictures, the human story. Then another guy who knew the CEO in New South Wales wrote directly to him. Then another guy, everybody's got their angle, the other guy's angle, he decided he'd take the list of the lobbyists who wanted the foul statement, and he'd publicise that list to every builder and developer in Australia. So, maybe they kind of would then know where these sorts of people were coming from ideologically. Anyway, to cut a very long story short, within, I think, about a week and a half, the AIA came out with a statement saying they would be making no statement on the conflict. They would be focusing on architectural business, and anybody who was upset, traumatised, or anything about this conflict, they were offering counselling services. Like, that is the outcome we want. And that's the kind of coordination we want. And that's organic. And that's actually the way I hope things will continue. So we will continue to make mistakes. I hope they're all new ones. And I hope we do learn from some of the things we've done well as well. So do we have time for questions or not?
I think we'll have the questions
At the end. All right. Thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing Rabbi Yael.
Thank you, Lynda. So that talk really ties in well because, of course, the situation and the landscape in Australia has changed since October 7. And it's my honor as a past president of Temple David and a UPJ executive member to introduce you our next speaker, which is Rabbi Yael Vugan. She leads the regional community of Kehilat Shahar HaNegev, and as the rabbi of several kibbutzim near the Gaza border since 2018, her experiences shaped not only by October 7, but what came before, what came after, and really insights into the way forward. So I'm not going to do a long introduction, Yael. You have so much to say and so much we need to hear. So please make welcome Rabbi Yael.
Wow. I'm really, really moved and honored to be here today with you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. It's not going to be easy, but we'll go through that together. I want to thank the UPJ for bringing me to Australia. I've been here for 9 days. This is my 10th and last day in Australia, my first time in Australia, and then tonight, actually, I start my way back to Israel. I want to thank Rabbi Kim and Amanda for organizing this visit and talk, and of course, Temple David for hosting it. So I'll start by just giving you a few sentences of my personal background, not because it's so interesting, just because it's relevant for the story that I will tell you. Mainly, I want to share with you stories from being the rabbi of this unique and weird congregation that I have. But before that, and also forgive my very Israeli English, it's nothing like Lynda's English, but I hope that you'll understand what I'm saying. So I was born and grew up in Israel in a city called Rishon LeZion. It's in the Tel Aviv area. And I grew up in a very secular family. And I don't know if you know that, but in Israel, the majority would be secular, maybe a little traditional. It's only the minority that is Orthodox, but they have a lot of political power, and so it seems for sometimes that it's the majority, but actually the majority of the Israeli Jewish public is kind of secular. And the thing is that when you grow secular in Israel, you don't usually put a lot of intention and effort to kind of express your Jewish identity, because it comes automatically by living in a Jewish state. We speak Hebrew. The Hebrew calendar is very present in the air wherever you go in the streets and in the supermarkets. Like right before Purim, before Hanukkah, you'll get the donuts, and before Purim, you'll get the hamantash, and then you'll get the cleaning materials for Pesach. So it's all in the air all the time, right? You go to the supermarket just 2 weeks before Pesach, and it's all just cleaning materials. And so I'm saying that I grew up and I went to a secular school. I'm not sure you know that, but in Israel, the education system is completely segregated. So except very few schools that actually merge, or kids from different upbringings can learn together. Mostly secular kids will go to secular school. Orthodox, observant kids will go to to a religious school, and we never meet. And so if you don't have religious people in your family, like I didn't have, the first time I met serious religious people, seriously, I mean, not just in the street, right? Religious people was during my army service, because the army kind of merges everybody together. It's a melting pot for the whole society. But before that, like you study with kids who are more like you. And so when I grew up, I didn't even know anything. We don't learn a lot of Jewish studies in secular schools in Israel. You know, we learn Bible and we learn some stuff, but very little. And again, we don't look deeply into what is our Jewish identity is, and we don't go to synagogues because we don't need to in order to feel Jewish, and right? So in my army service, I first met religious people, and I was kind of charmed with, you know, I actually got in close contact with some of them and went to their families for Shabbat and kind of see that they, you know, they have these deep discussions over the meals and they sing, and I was really charmed by that, and that started a whole very long journey, which I wanted to learn more Judaism, and I was in the spiritual search of, you know, wanting to, kind of feeling deprived that nobody taught me that, and I wanted to learn, and so I went to learn in many, many different places, and eventually also in university. So I had my first degree in Jewish thought and literature, and after that, you know, a master degree in contemporary Judaism, it's called, in the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and again, learning in many different frameworks. And just later on in my life, very late in my life, I discovered that there are also these liberal progressive streams, because growing up in the 70s and 80s of last century in Israel, although there were some communities from the progressive streams of Judaism, but I didn't know, it was much smaller than today, and I actually didn't know anything about it. So I grew up thinking in Israel, right, you can only be Orthodox or secular, so it's all or nothing, black and white. And much later on, also living in the States for a few years, I got exposed to other options. And from that time on, and when I found the Reform movement in Israel, I was really happy because I was then involved in all kind of NGOs dealing with social justice and human rights. And I felt that it's either or, like it's either I continue with my deeply Jewish, you know, interest, or I deal with these things. And these don't go together. You have to choose. And finding the Reform Progressive movement in Israel, I really felt for the first time that I can hold all sides of my personality, and I don't have to give up any of this, because the whole idea in the Reform movement is really that you, out of your Jewish identity, you are active in tikkun olam and making the society better, and so I could do both. And then, late in my life, in my 40s, I go to rabbinic school at HUC Jerusalem, and I was ordained in 2018. When I was ordained, I was living, before that, when I was a student, I worked for a few years for an organization called Rabbis for Human Rights in Israel. And then, for many reasons, I left that job, and after being ordained, you know, the Israeli movement suggested that I would go to be a rabbi in a region called Sha'ar HaNegev, which most of my story will be about that today. And I said, no, I don't really want, nobody wanted that job, okay? They couldn't find a rabbi to go to that area, but it was really important for the movement to have somebody. And why? Now ask me, why did nobody want to go to that area? Because most of us rabbis, first of all, no other rabbi than me right now. We have another rabbi working a little bit in Be'er Sheva, and we have 2 Reform kibbutzim, very, very down south, towards Eilat, Yahel, and Lotan. Other than that, we don't have anyone working in the south, living in the south. I don't live in that area as well. I live in Modi'in, in the center of Israel. So no rabbi wanted to really take this very challenging, with a lot of transportation and stuff like that, and driving a job, but also because the story I'm going to tell you about today, I told you before, it's an awkward kind of congregation. It's not what you mainly know as a synagogue-based congregation, so it's not. I'll tell you what it is in a minute. But then when I was ordained, I had this fantasy of, you know, being like standing here. I have a synagogue, people come to hear me, I stand on a beam, right? I wanted this kind of regular, classic rabbinic work. I didn't know anything about this area, you know, and I didn't know anyone in the area. I ended up taking this position, and let me tell you, a few months already into, I'm now 5.5 years doing that work. A few months into that job, I fell completely in love with the area, with the people of the area, with that kind of weird rabbinic work. And I couldn't imagine myself now doing any other kind of rabbinic job. I'm really, really very into it. And so what does it mean to be a rabbi of a regional community? So as I said, no synagogue, Forget it, not this setting, okay? Some kibbutzim that I work with do have a building of a synagogue, but that's not the center of my community. There's just their synagogue, okay? And most of them don't go there, right? And so, but most kibbutzim don't even have a synagogue. And so where do I do activities? Where do people come? Guess what? They don't come to synagogue, okay? And none of the people that I serve actually signed out to be a member of a Reform community. But still, I work in the area on behalf of the Israeli movement for Reform and Progressive Judaism, and they all know it, but it's not like a membership kind of thing. Though all the, let's say, 9,000 residents of the area where I work, I'll show you a map in a minute, okay, I consider them to be like my target. I want to serve, I want to give services to all of these people. And so what it means is that I really just drive from one kibbutz to another, and I officiate activities and ceremonies within the kibbutzim. Sometimes I do something regional with the municipality, but basically I would be going from one kibbutz to another. You know, there's the symbol of the yellow gate. Every kibbutz has a yellow gate, and I'm saying that symbolically because I need somebody technically also to open the yellow gate. They wouldn't give me the password for that. But also, it's a symbol because if I want to be efficient working in the kibbutzim, I always need to have partners. And so the first year or two into that position, all I did, which helped me a lot after October 7th, all I did is to make many, many connections so people would just know about me and then they invite me. Each kibbutz is a community by itself, so they don't need me in order to form a community. They are a community of life. They live together. Literally, okay? What do they need me for? They need me to bring this added value, this extra deep content to their communal life, which they are actually missing, okay? They have a lot of cultural events, but it's more on the level of, just fun things. And then when I make good connections with the cultural coordinator and other people in the kibbutz, I can really come in and I'll show you what kind of activities we do. One other thing, the people in the kibbutzim, most of the kibbutzim in Israel, are very secular, just like what I grew up, although they live in a kibbutz, and I didn't. Secular in a way that is even more extreme than I grew up, because they're really, really sometimes anti-religious, and sometimes just really rejecting anything that smells like religious, because, and in a way you can't blame them, because in Israel there's so much religious, how should I say that, like coercion, like you're opposing it on them, and they, because again, the ultra-Orthodox system controls so much of even our personal lives that people kind of, they don't want anything to do with that. And when I come in, first of all, my secular upbringing helps me because I understand them. I have empathy for their kind of fear, and also I respect their values and I respect their way of life. I'm not expecting them to change anything. I'm just trying to suggest if they want to connect to the tradition and Jewish identity in a way that will not intimidate them and that they can connect to. And so, to tell them, this Torah and this tradition belongs to all of us and to you also. Come see if there's anything there that you can actually be inspired by and it could, be relevant to your life. And I have to be smart and gentle and creative and flexible in order to do that. Okay, so now I'm starting to show you some images. And the first one is the logo of my congregation. You see it over here? All right, so that's the logo. It says Kehilat Sha'ar HaNegev. By the way, Sha'ar HaNegev in Hebrew means the gate to the Negev. Negev is more than half of the Israel territory on the south. It's a desert. Sha'ar so it means the gate to the Negev. That's where the Negev begins. It's not the end on the south. It's just the northern part of the Negev, which you enter the Negev to. It's even north of Beersheba, which is quite in the north of the Negev, okay? I'll show you a map in a minute. And so it says Kehilat Sha'ar HaNegev, and then there's this flower, red flower, which took me a long time to learn how to say it in English. Guess what? It's called anemone. Am I saying it right? Okay, in Hebrew, kalanit, in English, anemone, which is a little like poppy seed, but a little different. It's a very fragile, gentle red flower. And so I didn't make this logo when I started working in the area. There was a rabbi working there a few years before, and so I inherited this logo. And I didn't understand at the beginning, why is it that way? But you'll understand in a minute. I'll go back to the flower and show you why did that become the symbol of the area. Okay, remember that flower, it's going to be our motive. All right, I'm moving on. Does that work? Yes. Okay, now I'm showing you. I love this picture, okay? But first I'm showing you this logo, okay? Through the logos, we'll learn something about the really special character of the area. That's the logo of the municipality. So again, I don't work for the municipality, I work for the Israeli movement, but I work in very close cooperation with the municipality of Sha'ar HaNegev. And what does it have in a logo? It has a field, right? You see the green? And then in the background, that's the houses and the tower of a kibbutz. So this municipality has 10 kibbutzim. There's also one moshav, that's another story. But the 10 kibbutzim are still working the land and still doing agriculture. And the area won this title like being the breadbasket of Israel. It's growing wheat, growing potatoes, growing carrots. Sometimes I officiate a ceremony in one of the kibbutzim, and then they want to give me like a little present of appreciation, so they give me like a bag of carrots or garlic or avocado, whatever it is they grow to take home. And it's kind of nice because they, they really are connected to the land. So these are secular Jews, very Zionist, very connected to the place and to the land, and also with a very deep sense of community. And that's amazing for me to, growing up in cities, living in cities all my life, what do I know about that? So starting working in the area, one of the people from one of the kibbutzim told me, look, you have to come and see our Shavuot celebration. Now, what do we know about Shavuot, right? It says in the Bible that it's the Chag HaKatzir, it's a harvest celebration, cutting the wheat. But later on, our sages also told us that it's the time, although it doesn't appear in the Bible, but it's the time when we got the Torah, so it became Chag Matan Torah. But they don't celebrate it as Chag Matan Torah at all. They celebrate it just like in the biblical description, the first layer of that holiday, which is cutting. So they grow wheat, they have wheat fields, and then they have huge celebrations in the kibbutzim that have wheat fields. And you come into, and so I went to see it because they told me I have to see it. And then you go through this gate made of hay packs, right? And it says on the top, Shavuot. And then, look at that, all the kibbutz comes down to the field, hundreds of people, children, families, everybody that sit, and they actually demonstrate how they're cutting the wheat. Let me tell you, I was so impressed with that. So it goes just in front of your eyes, and it cuts the wheat, and it's so beautiful. And so, I was really, and they really, really identify with that symbol. We work the land. We get bread out of the land. And that's really important to understand that kind of character of the area. Now back to the red flower. Why is the red flower the symbol of the area? Because 1 month a year, every February, every year, the area looks like that. If you go in the summertime or after the summertime, it's all yellow because of the wheat and because it's all dry, okay? But in the wintertime, it's all green. And then you have these red flowers, or the anemone flower, all over the place. And it's really beautiful. It looks like that. And people come from all over Israel to take pictures with the flowers and admire it. And so this became the symbol of the area. Now I want to have you look at that for a minute. And I'm actually dedicating this talk to the memory of the mayor of Sha'ar HaNegev, Ofir Lipstein, Zichro Livracha. He was one of the first people that were murdered that horrible Shabbat. He lived in Kibbutz Kfar Aza. He was a member of the civil defense team of the kibbutz, and he went out of his house very early in the morning when they realized that there are terrorists inside the kibbutz. He and other members of that civil team went out to get their weapons from the armory, and the terrorists were already ambushing them over there, and he was killed immediately. And Ofir, I'm looking at this picture, I'm still not understanding that he's not alive because he was such a lively person and such a wonderful person. And also, he started working as a mayor of Sha'ar HaNegev when I started working as a rabbi, so we went all this way together. And he was such a great partner for Progressive Judaism. He really loved the fact this municipality doesn't have an Orthodox rabbi, and so he always introduced me, look, this is our rabbi, and he was so proud to have Progressive Judaism in his municipality. And he was really a good partner. He came to our events. he participated, he would greet people, he was really proud to have that. So he's really, really a good partner. And he was the one that initiated a festival. So he said, we have this wonderful, treasure of all the red flowers. Every year in February, there will be a festival in the area called Darom Adom. What's Darom Adom? The Red South. And people really come from all the country. And there will be fairs and tours and activities and shows every weekend. And it was lovely. This year, they canceled all of the events. The only thing that was left was the Enemy March to his memory, and thousands of people came. Anybody saying something? No? All right. Okay, so going back for a minute for this, so if you meet residents of that area, they will tell you we have two kinds of red. We have the good red, and then we have the bad red. Why? Because when there are rocket attacks on the kibbutzim coming from Gaza, their alarm, because they're so close to the border, it's not like all the rest of Israel. When you have an alarm, it goes like wee, wee. In this kibbutzim, it doesn't go like that. It says Tzeva Adom, Tzeva Adom, and then people know they have to run to their safe room. So Tzeva Adom, color red, and so you understand that red is a really, and you wear red today, so you're identifying with us. Red is a really meaningful color. They have Darom Adom and they have Tzeva Adom, color red, the good red and the bad red. And also, people will tell you, if you ask them how it is to live in Sha'ar HaNegev, they're in love with, they think it's the best place. Like you say, it's heaven here. So they would say 95% heaven and 5% hell. And, tragically, that's kind of, the percentages changed, let's say, after October 7th. But yeah, these people are so connected to their kibbutzim, to their communities, to the land, to the area, and they really love it. And so when the alarm goes Tzeva Adom, some of the kibbutzim, the closest one have like just a few seconds, 3 or 5 seconds to get to the safe room. The little further kibbutzim, 4 kilometers, they would have like 12 seconds, and then 50, that's what you have. So if you're at home, you run every house in those kibbutzim have a safe room in the house to protect you from rocket attacks. It's not meant to protect you from terrorists invading the kibbutz, right? But so you run into the safe room in your house. If you're outside, walking on the path in the kibbutz, you have to figure out which is the closest, like little shelters that are all around outside the kibbutzim. And people describe to me, they got used to this way of thinking. We walk in the kibbutz and we think, if there's alarm now, where do we go? There's a little one here and there's the one there. They kind of calculate all the time where would they run if there will be an alarm right now. And also driving on the roads of this area, if you ever been there, in every junction and next to every bus station, you will have these little concrete shelters, just these little concrete like boxes like that, that are called migunit, and you have to stop your car and run immediately to be under the protection of one of these. Okay, moving on. Okay, here's the map. So it's a little small. You can't see all the names, but you can definitely see the Gaza Strip. And then the area of my work, Sha'ar HaNegev, is right here in that area. I have one kibbutz here called Erev. There's also the Erez crossing over there. And then here's the city of Sderot. Not all the kibbutzim appear here, but there are many kibbutzim around Sderot that I work with, Gevim, Nir Am, Or HaNer. Or HaNer is for Argentinian Jews, and across the street there's Baruch Hai, which is for Brazilian, so you can imagine the kind of competition between them, definitely in football. So each kibbutz has its own very special character. It took me a while to learn that. They're different from each other, but still they have all this identity of being Sha'ar HaNegev people. Okay, so now this is Mefalsim, and here's Kfar Aza, and here's Nachal Oz. You can see the proximity. Nachal Oz is less than 1 kilometer from the fence. And then all the way south of that, from Nachal Oz down, there's another region. It's not the region where I work, although I do get some work in that kibbutzim because they don't have a progressive rabbi there. It's another region called Eshkol. It's huge. I had a bat mitzvah in one of the kibbutzim down here, Kisufim. It's like you drive forever in the desert, you never get there. It's really the end of the world, and that's already close to the Egypt border. And now, what you see, and of course, maybe you heard in the news names of other kibbutzim, Be'eri, Re'im, where the party was. this is all this area in the south, so it's not my region, but I know it well, and this is my region. And the purple area is all the places the terrorists managed to get. And so you see, they got really far. Ofakim is really far. They got all the way out there. Okay. And this picture is taken from Kibbutz Kfar Aza, about 1 kilometer from the fence out towards, so that's the western fence of the kibbutz, looking at the Gaza. It's actually it's a neighborhood in Gaza City called Shadja'iyah. And you see how close there's this field, and that's it. That's the border. I think this is one of the fences that actually got broken down and on that day. Here's another angle of this. But all those kibbutzim sitting so close to the fence, if you go to the western side, you can really almost see eye to eye, with the houses on the Gaza Strip. And now I'm introducing you to this wonderful person, Dani Rachamim. He lives in Kibbutz Nachal Oz, and he, for many years, worked in the agriculture of the kibbutz, and then he became the spokesman of the kibbutz. So even before October 7th, because I insisted that Reform temple trips that from the diaspora coming to visit Israel will not only go to Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or Anana, I insisted that they will also come to see my area. So I got many groups coming, and every time Danny will take them to see the fence, and he would describe how they're working the field even out of the fence, like until the last centimeter, until the border, really. And also, I heard him many times saying proudly that the Israeli government have put millions, billions, to build this sophisticated fence above the ground, and then all this concrete, barrier under the ground. And that didn't hold, right? And so it was really, I don't know how, but it was so easy for the terrorists to break the fence because they did a lot of preparation work, and they knew where the soldiers that were supposed to view over to guard the borders, they knew exactly where they are, and they also conquered all the border bases, and so very easily they took the fence off. And so I think the whole concept that fences can give us security, this conception completely failed at that day. And I want to show you one other thing about Dani. So Dani, and this is to explain how I work with these kibbutzim. So I told you these are very secular people, but Dani, for example, he comes from a more traditional background, and so he knows Torah. And when I do Kabbalat Shabbat, so that's in the members club, right? We don't have synagogue, and no bima. And also the no bima that I don't have, I'm happy to give it up for congregants to be the ones who are actually doing things. So Dani is my partner in Nachal Oz. We do a lot of Kabbalat Shabbat over there. They love it. So you just see him, but there's all the people just very informal, sitting around in a circle. And I'm inviting him to do the Dvar Torah. It doesn't have to be me. He can do that. He's sitting with a chumash, and he's talking about the weekly Torah portion, and it's lovely. And it's really, again, like being something very communal and very interactive. I get them also to talk and to have some discussions even in the Kabbalat Shabbat. The Kabbalat Shabbat will include some traditional. Of course, we always do Lecha Dodi and some other, and Yedid Nefesh and some other more traditional songs of Shabbat, but we do a lot of Israeli songs. And every Kabbalat Shabbat looks a little different because what season is it, and what's the coming holiday, and what's happening in the world. And so it will be every time a little with a different emphasis. And they just love it. These people, although being very secular, they want this spiritual experience of Shabbat. And the way that I'm doing it with them really enables them to connect without feeling threatened that, somebody's going to tell them you have to do that or that. We're not talking about how you live your personal life. We're talking about, views and values and nice, motives to take from our tradition. And since you already know Dani, now you will know his daughter, Karine, and that's her partner, Naama. And they were about to get married. In the background, you see one of these. This is our Israeli Reform movement. Here's the English one. And so we are doing Pride Kabbalat Shabbat during the month of June, which is the International Pride Month. And so they were about to get married, and it was the first gay wedding in the kibbutz. And the Kabbalat Shabbat before that, we greet them under the talit. And it was just lovely. And Naama, she comes from an Orthodox family, and she also thought that, it's either she's gay or she's really deeply involved in Jewish community. She didn't think that it could be both. And when she found out that the progressive Judaism is so inclusive and that we celebrate the diversity and, she can really be active in our community and do Jewish stuff and keep her identity, be proud of it, she was really, really happy. And then she became my partner to do Pride Kabbalat Shabbat in the different kibbutzim. She knows the people, she knows the community, she invites them. I bring the content and the musician, and we do lovely things. And here's what happened after a year. So now they have a baby, and you see we're decorating the members come in the kibbutz with our flags, and we're just having this really lovely event. And these are the sweetest people. The sweetest people. They go right into your heart. They're very informal. They're very direct. They're very alive. And they live 1 kilometer from the Gaza border, okay? And just amazing. You understand now why I'm in love with my congregants, right? Okay. And that's another event I used to have on a regular basis. When I started working in the area, I joined the Interfaith Forum of the Negev. There are a few, I don't know if many, but few interfaith groups in Israel. So some in the Galilee where you have population of Christians and Muslims and Jews in the same area. And in the south, it's basically mostly sheikhs from the Bedouin cities that are neighbors to the area where I work. We have a big city called Rahat and then some other Bedouin places. And there is, so he is a priest in Beersheba. There is a small Catholic community in Beersheba, so he's participating in the forum. And on the left here is Radir. She's a Muslim activist, very, very well known in Israel. She's an amazing woman. Now she lives in the north, but she was very active in our South Interfaith Forum. And this is Nurit. And Nurit is she's from Kfar Aza. This picture is taken Hanukkah 2 years ago in the member club of Kfar Aza. Nurit calls me every time and she says, okay, what are we doing for that and that holiday? And I tell her, so she calls me before Hanukkah and says, what are we doing for Hanukkah? I said, you know what, Nurit, let's do an interfaith candle lighting. She knows nothing about it. She has no idea what I'm talking about. She said, yalla, let's do it. Okay, and then we did it. And it's very simple. I just invite my friends. Each one of us we talk about any of the motifs of the holiday. Could be like light in our tradition or miracles in our traditions. And we light the candles together. And many people come to that. They're really curious. And you know what? They come to me after and say, we have never heard a person of another religion speak. Now, I don't mean as service givers in restaurants or gas stations. I mean a spiritual leader of another religion actually speak to us, explain. This is a problem I think we have in Israel. We have many beautiful things in Israel, but this is something we may learn from you. I don't know. But, we don't know how to live with non-Jews. And being the majority in Israel, Israeli Jewish kids grow up thinking everybody's Jewish, right? They don't even realize that there are 20% non-Jewish citizens in the state of Israel. And my kid, for example, in elementary school, I sent him to one of the very few Jewish Arab schools that they actually learn together and they learn about the traditions of each one of them. There are not that many schools like that in Israel, and most of the kids will never get to know a person of another religion. And so even the adults that came to this event never heard, okay? So it's lovely, and it's bringing, now I want to tell you one other thing that I didn't say before, how smart the Israeli Reform and Progressive Movement was to start sending us rabbis to all the ends of Israel. Because at the beginning, the Reform movement had centers in the centers of Israel, right? So we have more than one community in Jerusalem and more than one community in Tel Aviv. And in my city, I live in Modi'in, there is a fairly large Reform community, and in Ra'anana, and in Haifa. Haifa, we have Liobek, and we have like the Reform empire, okay? But what about people who don't live in cities like that? So what are their options? When they need Jewish services, who would they turn to? Right? People living in the kibbutzim and moshavim, in the periphery of Israel, in the south part, in the north part, what do they have as options? And at some point, the Israeli movement appealed to the Supreme Court. There was the Miri Gold We won that, and then that forced the government to actually, for the first time in history, support non-Orthodox rabbis in Israel, because the Orthodox rabbis get a lot of budget and nothing for the progressive streams. And so finally we got a little bit of budget for that. And so since that time, about a decade ago, the Israeli movement, we doubled the amount of community altogether in Israel, but now out of 50-something congregations, 13 of them are regional congregations like the model that I described to you, meaning no necessarily central synagogue, but just going to the different kibbutzim, officiating things in the kibbutzim with the communities. It's all about reaching out. You don't expect them to come to you. You go to where they are. And if it means that you do something on the grass or even next to the swimming pool or in the bar in the kibbutz, because that's where they are, that's where you do it. And then you get people who would never step foot in a synagogue, right? So I think the movement was really smart. A lot of people was kind of saying, oh, what, you're going to send rabbis to all these little places? Who's going to come? You know what? Now, after October 7th, nobody says that anymore. Everybody realizes that the fact that we have been working for a decade in the periphery of Israel, because now people from the north are evacuated also, and people from the south are evacuated. Now we are the rabbis who are used to working that way of going to them and visiting and coming to them wherever they are. So now we are able to do this work because we have invested all those years in doing that anyway. Okay, so that was a really smart move. Here's another picture from that event. And okay, now I'm moving on, and I'm taking you to October 3rd. Okay, October 3rd, 2023, Chol HaMoed Sukkot. I finally get to fulfill one of my dreams, which I dreamed about since I became a rabbi, which is doing a late bar and bat mitzvah for seniors. I work a lot with the seniors in the area. They love studying, they love singing, they come to all the events. And so at some point, I found out, so here is Yoki. He's 89 from Kibbutz Gevim. He loves our activities. He comes to everything that I do. He really loves it. And then I don't remember what we were talking about, but he was telling me, I never had a bar mitzvah. Well, because it was Independence War when he was 13. He was born in 35, okay? And I told him, Yoki, would you like to have one? And he said, yeah, why not? And it's never too late. And so we gathered some other people. So here's Danny again. He's the younger here. He's 70-something. But here is Igal, and he's 87, and his wife Yael, and this is Yoki's wife Edna. And they're all over 80, and they're very, very secular people, tough people, and all of them, of course, the women never had bat mitzvah. I'm not talking about a party. I'm talking about traditional bat mitzvah, reading Torah and all of that, right? So the women never did because they never did on those generations. It wasn't even an option in Israel. I don't know if you hear. And the men, they were just too secular, and the families never did it. And so I gathered these 3 women and 3 men together for 3 months. We met at the regional senior club. The region has a beautiful senior club. They come there every day from all the kibbutzim. And I taught them to read Torah. They had no idea, okay? I taught them the very basic stuff of, Jewish rituals. And then we had a ceremony. And we deliberately planned it to be towards Simchat Torah, because we're connecting to the Torah, so let's do it before Simchat Torah. And that was October 3rd in the senior club. They all these 6 went up. It was called through Aliyah Torah, and they read a bit of the Torah, and we were really, really rejoicing. It was a beautiful event because it was Chol HaMoed Sukkot, so their grandchildren could come. They were on vacation, and their families came, and all of the senior friends from the kibbutzim came. It was such a lovely event. I was really, really happy. It was one of my moments as a rabbi, and then we took a picture out in the sukkah out there. You see, and it says on the orange sign, V'samachta b'chagecha, rejoice in your holiday. Indeed, we rejoiced, not knowing what was coming just in 4 days from that day. And that's it. That was the last event I had before October 7th in the area. On October 7th itself, I was supposed to officiate another bar mitzvah in one of the moshavim in the area, of a boy this time, 13-year-old. And we prepared, and everything was ready. We were supposed to have it in the Bet Knesset, in the synagogue of the Moshav. So we had to do it like a mincha bar mitzvah because they had services in the morning. And so I was at home in my house in Modi'in, And I didn't, I wasn't really in a hurry in the morning because I knew that it was a late bar mitzvah. But at 7 o'clock, my phone started ringing, and it's the mother of that bar mitzvah boy telling me, "Are you aware of what's going on?" And I had no idea. It's Chag in the morning. I was just getting up. And then from that minute on, and at the beginning, everybody thought it was the regular rocket attacks. These people, unfortunately, are so used to that. So when there is a rocket attack, they go into the safe room, then they come out and continue with their lives. They're not, making a fuss out of it every time. But they told me that this time it sounded completely different. These people in the area are so used to it, they can identify the angle of the rocket just from the sound of it. Okay, where is it exactly coming from? They know exactly where it's going to land just by what it sounds like. They told me this morning it was nothing like all the regular attacks we were used to. It was just going on and on, boom, 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 without stops for a long time. And then about an hour after that, two of those kibbutzim that I showed you, Nachal Oz and Kfar Aza, realized that they have hundreds of terrorists already in the kibbutz. Some of them came above the fence with kites, with what do you call them? Hang gliders. And some broke the fence and just walked in. And at 8:30, I'm in many WhatsApp groups of the area, so we already got the message that Ophir Liebstein, the mayor, was murdered. And at that time, people started realizing this is completely a different scale of attack. And all the defense groups, the civil defense groups of the different kibbutzim were out fighting those terrorists. I think the 8 kibbutzim, not Nachal Oz and Kfar Aza, all the other 8 managed to prevent the terrorists from coming in. They did, some of them, like fighting them around the fence, but they did not invade the kibbutzim. So Kfar Aza and Nachal Oz are the 2 places which hundreds of them were inside the kibbutz. Yeah. And so before I get to that, so what do I do as a rabbi? I'm not even there physically, but these are my congregants. This is my congregation. I went to rabbinic school 4 years, but nobody taught me and prepared me. Nothing can prepare you to what is your role in that situation. And I really was helpless. I'm feeling so helpless, being far away. I started calling all of the people that I have hundreds of contacts in my phone of residents of the kibbutzim, and I know them really well. They, and I started calling them, and some of them couldn't answer the phone. They didn't have receivers, or their electricity was off, or they were just busy surviving or fighting or whatever it is. And for days, I was just making 50 phone calls every day to kind of find out what happened, where are they? And later on, after that end of that Shabbat or Sunday, they started to evacuate those kibbutzim, except 2 that are further from the fence, which never were evacuated. All the rest were evacuated, either independently, they just went into the cars and drove away, or in some cases, the army had to kind of rescue them in armed vehicles from the area. And then I started to look for information where all of them are. Some of them went as a whole kibbutz to a hotel or another kibbutz that absorbed them. Some of them spread out to their family members. And so I just had this, let's say, whole first week just collecting information, trying to understand what they were going through, reaching out to them, starting to pay visits to wherever they are, and just listen. And you know what? I remember calling this woman and saying, tell me what to do. And she said, you have to face it. There's nothing you can do. Nothing to do. That's it. That's what happened. And so, again, feeling, I'm a rabbi, I want to do something, but the only thing I could do at the beginning was just find out and try to understand because people tell me, if you weren't locked in your safe room for 20 or 30 hours or 10 hours with young children, hearing all the shooting going in your backyard or even in your living room and all the bombing and everything, you cannot understand. And I really felt like I can't understand not being there. But then I heard so many stories. I was going, let's say, Kibbutz Kfar Aza were evacuated to Shfaim. This is what I want to show you now. Kibbutz Shfaim, next to Herzliya, absorbed the people of Kfar Aza. One of the Kfar Aza kibbutz members told me that they were so shocked and shaking when they finally were evacuated at Sunday night. In the middle of the night, they got to Kibbutz Shfaim only with what they were wearing on their body. They didn't have time to take anything. And they told me, she described it like the people of Shfaim, of the kibbutz that hosted them, and is hosting them until that day, he described it, he said, they literally breastfeeded us because they were so helpless. They couldn't eat, they couldn't sleep, they had nothing on them, so the people collected immediately donations of clothes, soaps, everything. It's like they were really treating them like babies because people were too shocked to do anything. Feeding them 3 meals a day, and the whole kibbutz Shfaim was on its feet, serving the people of Kfar Aza that were evacuated at that night to that place. And so I remember the first time I was driving to Shfaim to see the people of Kfar Aza, which are my congregants in a way, right? And I was afraid to go. What am I going to meet? I didn't make any appointments. I just went there. I just drove there. And I was sitting in the lobby of the hotel and just meeting people. And people would come to me and I asked them, tell me what happened. What was your experience? And they would tell me the stories. And so for the first few weeks, I just heard dozens of stories, horrific stories of their experience, sometimes a lot of bravery of people and the survivors. You know, they have survivor guilt, but they also have some amazing stories of how brave they were all that time. And I'm amazed, and you know, rabbis like to talk, but I didn't talk for all this. I was just listening. Holding their hands, hugging them, absorbing all this information, trying to understand, and they kept on telling the stories. And I would go to that lobby of the hotel thinking, I'll be there 2 hours. I ended up being 7 hours because people would just come up and stories would come up, and you know, my days was chaotic completely. And not the regular work that I do, but that was the work. And then started the funerals. And now you have to understand, before October 7th, I was officiating many funerals in the kibbutzim. And they loved, you know, this kind of, the kind of ceremony that I can give them. And so I have experience, but I never officiated a ceremony, a funeral for more than one person. And most of the funerals after October 7th were multiple. So here is one funeral that I officiated, and then you see 2 coffins, so it's a man and his wife, and sometimes it's a parent and a child, or sometimes a whole family. And so these are, you can't imagine how these funerals and how people felt. And if you ask one of the people of that area, so how are you? And say, how can we be? We go from one funeral to another. What you see here is one of the saddest pictures I took. This is in the lobby of Shfaim, and that's where Kfar Aza is. And in the period where it took a long time to recognize some of the bodies, and so the period of the funerals was long, okay? And then every day you come into the lobby, which you would usually, like, you know, check in with your family for a vacation, and then you come across this flip chart. You see on the left, and it's just a simple paper flip chart, and somebody writes with markers. It says Levayot Yom Daled on the top, the funerals of Wednesday. And then they would list all the funerals that are taking place that day. And you see there are 10 of them. And so they're in different places in different hours, and the kibbutz organized a bus to go to them. But sometimes there were a few funerals at the same time, people had to choose. And you have to, also people not from these kibbutzim, living in other kibbutzim, they have relationship in the area because their kids go to the same regional school, and they all marry each other from different kibbutzim. So even if your kibbutz didn't have victims, you would know all the other people, or most of the other people. So just all thousands of residents of the area that I served had weeks that they just went from one funeral to the, and then the shivas, and then the shloshim memorials, and that was a whole period like that. And then I didn't even know if I was going to continue doing the work of, for example, doing Kabbalot Shabbat. So, right, we don't call it services because they don't, you know, God forbid, it's not a tefillah. And if possible, don't say God too many times because we're secular, but we're doing a nice Kabbalot Shabbat all the time. And then I didn't know if this is going to continue because everything was so chaotic and fragile and, you know, broken. But that actually is a picture from October 13th. And so the people of kibbutz called Gevim were evacuated to another kibbutz in the north of Israel called Mizra, and they were there. And I got a phone call from one of them saying, let's do Kabbalot Shabbat. You say, really? Seriously, you want? Yeah, we want. And I go there, and everybody is still shaking. Everything is a chaos. People told me, good thing you came so we even know what day it is, that it's Shabbat, because at some places I saw they put signs, it's Wednesday, this and this the day. People were so confused and so out of place, so displaced, they didn't even know what day it was most of the time. And so you see, we're all sitting outside, it's still summer, and kids are running around in the grass playing and laughing, and their parents sometimes crying. And it's very informal, but and I didn't have a lot of time to plan because they called me like 2 days before. And I grabbed them. My musician lives in Kibbutz Mefalsim. She was not functioning for the whole 2 months, so I had to find somebody else to grab and do this Kabbalat Shabbat with. But that's what it was. We sit out there, we sing the songs. Helicopters in the sky. We're creating this bubble of comfort and community and being together. And even though I told you these people don't really want services, I felt every song and every word had a quality of a prayer. So even if we sing a Nomi Shemer song, Lu Yehi or Al Kol Ele, and it's an Israeli classic, just Hebrew poems, but every word in it now sounds like had new meanings and feels like a prayer. And these people really wanted that. It really helped them. Apparently, again, I didn't initiate it, they initiated, okay? But I was there to bring the songs and the music, and we were doing this together, and I can't tell you how moving and how powerful. And then from that week on, every week, this is the evacuees of Kibbutz Mefalsim. They're in a hotel in Herzliya. And of course I come there and it's a whole chaos and there are no chairs and no microphone. But somehow we organize it last minute, and then we sing and we sit and we do Kabbalat Shabbat. And it's not like this, but it's a very meaningful and powerful experience for them. And then starts all the hostages, at the beginning. Now I know all the hostages' names almost by heart, and I'm really, really appreciative to see that you have their faces and names hanging here. It took a while before it was organized at the beginning. Of course, the government didn't do anything, and the families were not organized yet. So I had to kind of find out myself who have hostages out of the families in my community. And it took me a while to collect the information. At some minute, I realized that here's Tammy, she's 86, she's from Nachal Oz. She is a tough kibbutznik woman, a very learned woman, so she comes to all of my events. She always corrects me, you didn't say that, you didn't say that. She always wants to talk and give her remarks, and she's just this type, okay? And apparently I realized that Tammy has her daughter and granddaughter kidnapped. They are American citizens, they don't live in the kibbutz, they came that holiday, like many families, by the way, have people staying in the kibbutz. They don't live there because it was Simchat Torah and they came for the holiday. And they came from the States, they live in Illinois. They came to celebrate her birthday. And then they were in a different, not in her house, they were in like this unit that the kibbutz gives for guests, and they were kidnapped from there. And Tammy and her family were running this kind of war room because they felt that, not enough was done by the government, and they wanted to kind of use all their contacts. I think that they were released the first, maybe because they're American citizens and they had some kind of pressure from whoever it is that they made contact with. She started writing songs, and she gives me these notes with poems that she was writing. And I said, Tammy, it's really good. Can I publish it to communities? And then later on, I learned, so I'm saying, what people ask me, what did you stop doing after October 7th? I said, I stopped teaching. Why did I love teaching. I'm a rabbi, right? But I stopped teaching because I really felt I was in a learning mode. And everything that happened, I'm ending, anything that happened was the residents teaching me what they need, what can help them. I didn't know how to help them. I really didn't know, except from listening and just being constant presence with them. And so I find that a lot of people, mainly women actually, find comfort in writing their experiences, and so they write poems and they send it to me, or they write war memoirs, and they're talented and it's beautiful stuff, and so I publish it to the community. So it's just this little other thing that I can do for them. And so I went to Tammy that day, and it took me a long time to reach her. She wouldn't answer the phone, and then she says, I have no time. So Tammy, I have to see you. And then finally I get to see her, and she tells me all the story. It was a Friday, and we were praying I say, let's pray together for them to come back. And I almost all day spent with her. Then I went home, and a few hours later we got the announcement that they were released. They were the first hostages to be released. And so I had all these experience with the people, just not knowing what's coming, just going and being with them. And what happens is what happens. Here's Tammy again. See her here? Now she's happy because they're back. I'm just showing you this to tell you we started getting all these solidarity delegations coming from all over the world. This is actually a World Union for Progressive Judaism. Here is Sergio. You see him here? Here's Sergio. So Rabbi Sergio Bergman. And that's a group from all, and they come, and I want them not to just meet me, I want them to meet the residents and to hear firsthand testimony. So I take groups. It's a big headache for me to organize it, but I think it's really important for them to meet the people. So groups are coming all these 5 months. So many groups coming, and this is, they're meeting people from Nachal Oz in where they are now, which is a different kibbutz in the north. And one of the residents of Nachal Oz told one of the delegations, I remember he said, you know, I don't get it. The reform movement had already brought here 6 delegations, and no government representative stepped foot to visit us here. So why I'm saying this? Because it's not only important for the diaspora Jews who come to Israel to meet those people and hear testimonies. I can't tell you how important this is for my congregants. I thought at the beginning it would be a burden, and every time I have to kind of organize this and coordinate with the people. They love doing it because it gives them a feeling that Jews from all around the world really care about them and really want to hear their stories. So again and again and again, they tell the stories and they don't get tired of it. And I understood at some point that this is a relief for them. It actually helps them process, and the feeling that they're a part of something much larger, worldwide movement, that people really care about them. It was really, really meaningful. We had many groups like that. And the sign says on the bottom, Nachal Oz Abayit Sheli. Nachal Oz is my home. So all these groups coming have been really meaningful all these 5 months. And now the hostages thing, I'm saying now to you, I'm almost begging and saying, you know, for my congregants, not all the hostages are from my region, but it's the first priority, period, okay? And these people keep telling me and telling the world, we lost so much. You know, we lost so many members of our communities. Kfar Aza by itself, it's a community of 900. They lost 65 members, okay? One kibbutz, okay? And Nachal Oz lost 14 members. And then they have the hostages, and they feel that, you know, they lost their neighbors and friends, and sometimes they lost their houses, they lost everything. They can't lose anymore. So they really, really see this as something that they have to have these people back. And so when you go into that lobby, remember Shfaim, you will come across this huge black sign, and it's the names of the hostages from that kibbutz, from Kfar Aza. There were 19 in the beginning. Most of them are back. They put stickers that say Kfar Aza Abayit Sheli on the names of the ones that came back. The red dots are still there, although this is not updated because Yotam and Alon are the 2 hostages that were shot mistakenly by the Israeli army, and so they came back not alive. But the other red dots are, I brought you this sign all the way from Israel. I didn't find an English version of it, but it says, Ze lo shalem biladehem, it's not whole without them, and that's the 7 hostages just from my region that are still there. You see that a municipality, remember the anemone flower, they had this logo of a bleeding anemone now. You see it over there on the left. And I just want to introduce you to people so you remember the names of Ziv and Gali Berman, our twin brothers from Kfar Aza in their 20s. And then Emily and Doron, they belong to the group of the young adults of Kfar Aza. They all live in a separate neighborhood because when they come back to the kibbutz after their army service, they get a little unit to live apart from their families. And so the neighborhood of the young adults in Kfar Aza was close to the fence, and almost all of the young people were either abducted or murdered. Not a lot of survivors from that area in the kibbutz. So we hope they're alive. This is Keith Siegel. You have his picture there. He's also from Kfar Aza. He was hostage with his wife. His wife Aviva is back. He's still there. And his brother is a member of one of our Reform congregations in Kibbutz Gezer, so we know this family really well. And these 2, Tzachi and Omri, are from Nachal Oz. They're in their 40s. They have children waiting for them at home. And so you see this is father of Omri from Nachal Oz. And it's, you know, there's so many, when they started getting organized, so many hostages demonstrations and events. I go there all the time. 2-3 times a week I go to the Hostages Square in Tel Aviv. And sometimes I just stand next to him holding a sign, and I don't have to say anything. Sometimes they would ask me to say a prayer on the stage, but I'm there even if I don't have an active role, just to be with them all the time, to support them, and to make sure that we do everything in our power to bring them back, and I'm asking you to do that as well. And then the kids of Kfar Aza organized this demonstration. This sign says, "We can't take another funeral." And then you see the survivors of the young adult neighborhood. We had Hanukkah in the Hostages Square. They told me, "How come it's Hanukkah? We're still stuck in Simchat Torah." But I brought this Chanukiah and I told them, "You light the candles, you talk to the public. You can't see it, but hundreds of people are standing around. And they're just, see how sad their faces are. They're telling their stories and they're lighting the candles and we're singing, songs together." And I don't have time for that, but this is Liora from Kfar Aza. I know her really well. She lost her son, Tal. He was the commander of the civil defense group in the kibbutz. And that's Tal's daughter, Gali. She's 15. I don't have time to tell you this very long story. I really wanted to bring Liora with me here to Australia, but the UPJ didn't allow it. So I'm representing her just for a minute, saying she spent 36 hours in the safe room. No water, no food, no toilets, no electricity most of the time, no receivings, with two of her children, not Tal, he was out there fighting, and two of her granddaughters, Gali and another one, 15 years old. And Gali's phone was the only one who miraculously continued to work and have receivings. And at some point, where the soldiers did arrive to the kibbutz, she was the one guiding them, because apparently she found out that they don't know where to go, and she was in the WhatsApp group of the kibbutz, and she got messages from people saying, "We have wounded people, we have terrorists in our house, send the army." And so she was 15 years old, running this army unit, telling them where to go. So I'm saying these are the heroes. She's a hero. And then one day I call Liora. I thought she was in Shfaim, where all the kibbutz said, "Can I come visit you?" And she says, I want to go back to my house. I haven't been there, to Kfar Aza. Her house, she knew that her house was completely destroyed, because when they were rescued, apparently there were terrorists in another room of the house, and the soldiers kind of rescued them out, but then they shot a bomb over that room to get rid of the terrorists, and so her house is completely destroyed. So I immediately tell her, can I just come with you? I didn't know what did she want to do there, but she let me come with her, and then I took pictures of how our house looks. Many houses in Kfar Aza look like that. See? And I knew this house. I was staying there when many times she hosted me for a meal or even to sleep there when I needed. So it was a beautiful house. And here's Liora digging in the ruins. And she was a very learned, very involved, Jewish learner. So she has many books, and started looking, see it says Shema Israel here on the book. I started taking pictures. These are books in the ruins. So this is Herzl's book, The Jewish State. And this you see, If This Is a Man by Primo Levi. And they're all just lying there in the ruins. And this is the armory. So this is a sign that the kibbutz put to commemorate heroes of the civil defense group. Moving fast. I told you about the young adults neighborhood. That's what the houses now look like. It's an awful, awful sight, horrible. And then they put up also the signs. Every house almost has a sign like that. Nitzan Lipstein, by the way, is the son of the mayor. So Vered, his wife, lost her mother and her husband and a son. She's mourning double three. I'll skip that. And also, this is important because at Liora's house, not a lot survived, but somehow this shelf survived, and it contains a bottle of wine. And then, you know what that is? It's a cover of a DVD. And it's a documentary film. It's called Two-Sided Story. It's a documentary film about dialogue groups of Palestinians and Israelis, because Liora was a peace activist and still is a peace activist after that, after losing her son. And this kind of survived. I was wondering if they saw it because it says, it's just a story of how Palestinians and Jews are meeting and trying to dialogue and to reach some kind of understanding. And so I had to take a picture of that. And I want to end, and I want to wrap it with some words of looking at the future, and maybe with all the grieving and all the mourning and the suffering that is so enormous that I'm just this drop in the ocean of all the help that these people need. I give them I'm like a first responder on a certain level, maybe a spiritual level. They have all the other treatments, and it's not enough. Really, it's enormous pain. But with it, I think at some point I felt that maybe what I can also give is talking a little bit about holding on to our values. And I told you, some people felt themselves or will define themselves as peace activists before, and are they still like that? Some said, we can't believe in that anymore. Some hold on to that. But can we talk about hope and what is the future of the Jewish people in Israel? And so during our ceremonies, I bring some songs that bring up those questions. Some people, it's hard for them. They say, we can't think of hope right now. And some people really appreciate it and encouraged by, not giving up our hopes. So Amanda, can you read this because you read English much better than I? I wanted to bring you this text to kind of demonstrate the things that we can, one more minute because I'm ending in this hope theme.
To the microphone so everyone can hear me.
Yeah.
It's a wonder I haven't abandoned all my ideals. They seem so absurd and impractical. Yet I cling to them because I still believe. Despite of everything, that people are truly good at heart. I simply can't build up my hopes on a foundation consisting of confusion, misery, and death. I see the world gradually being turned into a wilderness. I hear the ever-approaching thunder, which will destroy us too. I can feel the sufferings of millions, and yet, if I look up to the heavens, I think that it will come all right. It will all come right. That this cruelty too will end, and that peace and tranquility will return. Anne Frank.
Yeah, let's go home with this idea, and I think that if she could write this in her age and in her situation, it might inspire us to think about our hopes and our values that we cling to and we insist, although it's really hard. And I want to show you one other thing. A big gift given to us by the World Union for Progressive Judaism. We got a donation of a Torah school, and we had this amazing ceremony just a month or two ago, and we dedicated this Torah scroll to the memory of Phil Liebstein, the mayor, on all the other heroes of the civil defense group. I didn't know how my congregants are going to accept this, like what is their connection to the Torah scroll, but you know what? And some people maybe, you will see now. So we had the ceremony, and this is the family of Phil Liebstein. That's his mother. And, she couldn't let go of that Torah scroll. She was holding it so hard as if it's her baby. And it was unbelievably strong ceremony that we held in their memory with the Torah scroll. And so the connection to tradition really gave them relief and gave them comfort. I couldn't imagine that. I didn't know how they're going to react. And I got all the widowers and the mothers of these heroes that were fighting to hold on to a Torah scroll. And we had a different ceremony after that, and to tell us the story of the person. And also I told them, the Torah is a symbol of life. Etz chaim hi. And so what gives you power? You don't understand. These women are so strong, so resilient. I admire them. And they were so, and these women probably never held the Torah scroll before. But so naturally they were holding it and talking beautiful words about the strength of life and their connection to tradition that gives them strength and energy and inspiration. So it's just lovely. And then I'm ending showing you this girl from Kibbutz Gevim, Alma, and she had two mothers, and the mother of this mother got murdered. And so, but the girl, being very secular girl, decided she is going to have Aliyah LaTorah, although it was really fresh. They were still mourning. It's 3 months after the event. But she wanted to have her bat mitzvah. I was so proud of her, and we learned together, and she did it. She read Torah. And this event, this bat mitzvah, taking place after October 7th, just a few months, being half memorial and half simcha. But it took place, it was a big encouragement for me. I owe it to her. She encouraged me saying, if we can read Torah, if we continue to celebrate our Torah and our tradition, that means we're slowly going back to life. And that's the last one now. Going back to life, meaning we can also use the symbol of the red flower, remembering, and I'm closing the circle with the anemone flower, because now if you have gone February to the area, you would see these flags hanging all around saying Darom Adom, the red south, and it says on the bottom, Porchim Mechadash, reblooming. And then some kibbutzim will hang out these signs with the flower saying HaNegev od yeporeach, the Negev will continue to bloom. And, you know, while being in deep, deep brokenness and grief, they have optimism and they have hope. And slowly now, some of the kibbutzim are already beginning to go back. The others, it's going to take a while, and, you know, they're not sure how it's going to work and how they're going to go back. But I believe in them so much, and I think they're such wonderful, connected, amazing, strong, brave people. I admire them. I believe in that. I believe that the area will rebloom. And I didn't say at the beginning, I want to thank you, because my work is possible thanks to your support. Your support enables my colleagues that do the same work I do, and me in Israel, to reach out to all these Israelis and really, really give them this comfort now. And I can't tell you how important that is. How many people we have reached, hundreds and thousands of people that we give them these services and these, you know, comfort. And so thank you for everything that you do for us. And I'm going to continue doing that with your support. And I feel now I'm never going to be able to leave this position, because it's like we're so strongly connected now. Thank you so much for listening. I know it was long and not easy, but you did it, and it was really important for me to be able to share this with you. It's like the special angle of October 7th events. Thank you. Should I get up?
No, stay. There's not much that one can say after two incredible speakers, both Rabbi Vugan and Lynda, your words on anti-Semitism, what we can do. But if there's one connector that can be said, it's the essence of ensuring that personal stories, whether it's sharing, like what you have said has made me feel this, in response to anti-Semitism, or in response to this is the personal stories of our people's lives, our people's history. To see the Shalshelet HaKabbalah, the chain of tradition, the Dor Vador, as that ultimate symbol of hope. And that is the essence of who we are as a people. Friends, I'm not going to do the typical pitch. I think it's all in the work that you have seen from what Rabbi Vugan has done in Shahar HaNegev.
And other rabbis are doing in the north.
And what our movement does. But it's all done with the help of the UIA and the UIA Progressive Appeal, how it supports people, the Jewish people and various people throughout Israel. And it's the United Israel Appeal. And if you haven't already given at the various functions of the UIA, I was at the gala the other night, which was brilliant. David, the work that the UIA does here in WA is phenomenal, as well as Jonathan with your work, which is phenomenal. And Joe, you here as part of the UIA office, and Oded. Again, thank you for all the work that the UIA does here in WA. And thank you for coming to our event here this evening and your support this afternoon. It's now evening. We very, very much appreciate it. Amanda, your help with the committee, this very small committee that we put together for this afternoon, and Ari, for your work, and to the volunteers, the many volunteers who help put up all the, how many are there? All the hostages. It brings it real, doesn't it, when you see...
There are 134.
134 currently?
134 currently are still there for 161 days.
For 161 days.
Which is unbearable and unthinkable.
It's unfathomable. It's unfathomable. And for bringing their lives into making it so personal, and we thank you for your time. We're not going to have time for questions, and unfortunately our guests do have to depart immediately. Yael has a flight back to Israel tonight. She arrived only a couple of hours ago. Lynda, you also have to leave immediately. We have small gifts for both of you. Just want to, they look disproportionate. You couldn't get to visit WA, but here is there's also a separate gift that is coming with this. I think our president, Rick Wolosny, has the second part of this gift for you, but this is a calendar of WA made by an Israeli who lives here, Mayan Rimmer. But it's all of WA scenes and Perth scenes. That's about all you're going to see of WA for right now.
Right. Thank you so much.
And there's
I
a
really
second part
appreciate
of
it,
that,
yeah.
that gift coming. And we know that you also later, after another event possibly, we have some WA wine for you to drink at dinner.
Thank you so much. I need a glass of wine. I just want
Yeah.
to say that the connection that you have strengthened between us here in Australia and the people of the South is already in all of us. And I've just come back from Israel, and I was down in the kibbutzim.
I really want to tell you we're one big family, and thank you for saying that. I see you as our partners. We have been struggling before October 7th. We were out in the streets for 9 months demonstrating with this sign saying Israel should be Yehudit, Vedemokrati, Jewish and democratic. And I really view each and every one of you as our partners to ensure that our beloved shared homeland will continue to be the good land, Haaretz HaTova, the Naomi Shemer and many other songs are praising. And there's a lot to fix. And as you said, a lot of work to be done. And I think we need you along with us to struggle for a better Israel. Sorry, I was cutting you in the middle.
No, it's okay. I was just saying that, you know, that work that I spoke about before, you know, I've taken groups of church leaders down to those kibbutzim, to Kfar Aza, to Netiv Azara. I've taken LGBT leaders, took academics in January last year to exactly the places that were attacked. When I went down there in January this year, it was just heartbreaking to walk into the same homes with the same people, not there. Keith, that man there in the white t-shirt,
Third from the left.
my partner Howard, is best friends with the man whose daughter is marrying Keith's son. They're in Costage Square every Saturday night protesting. One of the 19 girls still being kept 161 days later comes from Ranana, where my sister lives, went to school with my nephew. The connections between all of us, and I know you all have your stories, are so profound and so deep that it is our duty to tell the stories and to fight the fight here that is the ripple of the massive, massive fight that is going on in Israel now to save those people and to save our liberal values.
And I would just suggest, you know, we're struggling, but instead of fighting, let's promote peace. Let's continue to believe in peace. I need this hope in order to continue to live in Israel, that peace is possible. I started singing instead of Ya'aseh Shalom, which means God will do peace, that we do in Oseh Shalom b'mromav, right? He who does shalom in heaven will do shalom on earth. I started singing with my congregants Na'aseh Shalom, which means we will promote, we will do peace. It's our job. It's our, you know, we, the human beings here on this bleeding earth, we need to find an end to this conflict and make peace. And I'm just praying that with you, with your permission tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I wish you all a wonderful evening. And as I said, we won't do questions. Our guests do have to leave immediately. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us here at Temple David. And thank you. I also want to do, one more thank you. Thank you to the Jewish Community Council and Friends of Israel WA for also supporting this event. Jeff Medalia, thank you so much for being here this evening. I didn't see you come in, but thank you for being here.